Today has seen a travesty of justice. Nicholas Arlott, Lloyd Dunsford, Martin Whitehead and Alison Young, known as the Tooting Four, maintain their innocence. Today's judgment is another body blow for free speech and for peaceful protests in this country. In this case, we have four innocent people peacefully protesting against the ULEZ expansion and campaigning to change the decision by Sadiq Khan, not by disruption, not by violence, not by threats, intimidation or harassment, but by genuine democratic means, asking residents in Greater London to vote for Susan Hall to stop the ULEZ expansion. During the course of this trial, the CPS and police told us there was absolutely no problem with all the protesters moving to City Hall, where incidentally there was no members of the public for them to demonstrate to carry out their protest. Apparently all their banners, placards, posters, slogans were perfectly legitimate if they went to City Hall. But for some reason, those banners, placards, posters and slogans were not allowed in Tooting. The CPS also argued that Mr. Khan would be harassed, alarmed or distressed, that people might object to his policies in Tooting, but not at City Hall. All this despite there being no evidence from Sadiq Khan and him being at that time on the stage at Trafalgar Square at the time of that demonstration. The judge at the outset declared an interest in having attended an event with Sadiq Khan, and despite protests from the accused, didn't recluse himself from the proceedings. There was a concern from the Tooting Four that he may have an unconscious bias against them, that justice could not be seen to be done and a fair trial was in jeopardy. In addition, the Tooting Four did not feel that enough time was given to their case, and all the evidence did not come out. Despite this, there is a very real chance that the judge misdirected himself and didn't take into account the impact this decision would have on free speech and how his decision could bring the judiciary into disrepute. Only on the 5th of November, protesters from Just Stop Oil were acquitted at Stratford Magistrates Court, having been accused of demonstrating outside Rishi Sunak's house in London. And when comparing the two decisions, it gives the public an impression of a two-tier justice system, as the two results are completely inconsistent. Bearing in mind that there have been at least 70 of these pop-up demonstrations and protests across Greater London in the 18 months leading up to the ULEZ expansion and the election, all without incident and all without any confrontations or run-ins with the police, the decision made today seems perverse to the four accused. Therefore, the Tooting Four will be discussing this with their lawyers and appealing this conviction and sentence at the earliest opportunity. Are there any questions?
Simon, what's your view about, I hear that the judge gave a donation to the Khan's, some event he had.
That's been mentioned, but he can't recall, if I remember rightly. So, I think I'd know if I'd made a donation to Sadiq Khan or to anybody for that matter. But then, maybe he's so rich it doesn't matter these things. He basically donations all the time. I don't know. I don't want to particularly have a go at the judge. He's come to a decision, but it seems to me that there was an unconscious bias there, having attended that event with Sadiq Khan, and that could have been at the back. He didn't put that out. He should have taken the opportunity, and I can say this as a JP, that if there is any doubt whatsoever that you might actually have an interest or be not seen to be doing justice at all, you recluse yourself automatically. And on this occasion, that didn't happen. So it should have happened, in my view.
Abuse of power as usual. And
Any other
Mr.
questions?
Magistrate calls.
So will there be stopping protests now? Will you do any more protests?
Well, that's a separate issue. We'll come to that. You'll probably hear more about that in the future. But all I can say is these four will continue to protest their innocence, and they're going to look now at appealing properly. Howard, I don't know if you want to say anything on top of what I've said. Just because Howard, again, has been supportive of these guys throughout the time. You know, as I said, every single occasion, on all the previous demonstrations, there's been actually lots of conversations with the police. They've turned up to see what's going on, and these guys have had engaged and talked to them. They've worked with them, and that is exactly what was happening here on the 6th of April.
I've been to 25 of these protests. I think you said 60 or 70 or 80.
Yeah.
And they've always been peaceful, good-natured and fun. The family environment, the carnival environment, with the fire brigade engines running around it and buses. No problem at all. Not obstructing the public whatsoever. I would have been at this protest, and I could have been in the dock with these guys. These people are totally and utterly innocent. All they're doing is standing by hard-pressed drivers and Londoners. I've said many times this is a regressive tax hitting small businesses and people who can't afford to drive but need their vehicles. And unfortunately, what we're seeing here, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep repeating this until I'm blue in the face, this is a political decision. This is nothing to do whatsoever with anything to do these people have done. They've not hurt anyone. Nick here, who was called over by the police quite peacefully, he willingly walked across the policeman. The next minute, he's in handcuffs. Why? And this has got to stop, this sort of thing. And I would recommend they appeal, but it's their decision to do that.
And the worst aspect of this is they were leaving. And you take, for example, Ali here, and I don't want to point her out too much. She was on the floor changing out of her dinosaur costume. Changing out of her dinosaur costume to leave.
And we got video evidence.
And we have got video evidence of it. That didn't come out because the trial may have been too rushed. So appeal seems to be the right process.
I just add about Ali. Now the judge, this just shows how much this judge was not listening or chose to ignore the evidence of the police themselves. In the video evidence, you can see she was actually still putting her boots on after taking her dinosaur. Now, in his summing up, he said that she already had them on. So he had totally ignored the video evidence from the police, which they totally contradicted themselves, which taken no account of whatsoever. So I feel like the man is totally biased. I think it's a total stitch up.
Can I just ask of the four of you, how are you feeling right now? Just kind of,
Sure. I'm disgusted. I am absolutely disgusted that this country has become as it has with our judiciary. It is. Are they there to uphold the law or uphold the will of their political masters? Because that's all I see. This was pushed by Khan. Like, besides the case that Simon referred to, there was also another case of just stop, well, recently, where 8 of them ended up being British. The same thing, identical thing, but actually outside Sunak's house. They walked free. The judge dismissed it, but not today. Don't tell me there's no bias within the law in this country.
And it's the impression that it gives. It brings the justice system into disrepute when you get those inconsistencies.
Yeah.
You know, and I know it's each case sort of on its merit, but this was not anywhere near Sadiq Khan's house. And I know where Sadiq Khan lives. I'm probably the only person that does. So I put a planning application in on his back garden many years ago. No, I'm not saying, but I know where he lives. And they were nowhere near.
They say, we heard today, he said 100 metres. As I understand it, it's 3 times that, wasn't it?
At least 3
About
times.
300 metres.
Yeah.
So it's a lie. And I also
Hey mate, you'll love it in Wandsworth on B-Wing.
The police
Have a taste of
didn't
that.
measure it.
I've been in there,
They didn't
it's
know
not
anything about it. They didn't know anything about it at all. The police, in fact, when they had the protest at the other end of the road in Tooting in the summer, actually that was probably closer to Khan's house. And yet nothing happened there.
And I was there.
And I was there.
I was standing for London Mayor at the time, and I was politically standing for London Mayor. The point is, in the actual court case itself, about 10 days ago, I sat there and listened to 3 or 4 police tell lies. You can quote me on that. I'm not joking. One said there's about 10 to 15 people at this protest, another said 30, another said 50, another said 100, and lots of other things. And yet there were 2 PCSOs who actually gave evidence, and guess what they said? It was a quiet, calm, respectful, great carnival atmosphere of a protest. There was no threats, no harassments.
And here's the question that everybody needs to ask themselves. All of a sudden, those police turned up, the riot police. How did they happen to be just there at that moment in time for that demonstration when they've never had any interest in anyone whatsoever in any other of these 70 odd demonstrations? Have been peaceful. The question is, how did they get there?
If you listen to the police evidence, they infer that they were on call and they came from other places. Well, that may have applied to a couple of them. But people had arrived early and saw the back roads, so it was all pre-arranged anyway. And if our presence there was apparently going to break the law, why did they let us set up? Why did they let us set up? In fact, local police actually helped us set up.
That's always been the case. The police have always been helpful.
Absolutely.
There's usually 2 or 3. I've stood in Trafalgar Square, stood down in Orpington, and every one of them said, "We're right behind you."
Yeah.
Those are the words that I got from every policeman. So this is definitely a travesty of justice.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Any final questions?
No.
No?
How do they get away with it? That's the question.
Well, they haven't done it yet.
They haven't yet because of the appeal coming.
Yeah.
Let's take the project.